I also think it's really important that the Black community is open to these things. Like, when I grew up, it was kind of a thing that it was considered like white people stuff.
Now, in terms of the risks, the biggest risk is that it's still illegal most places.
Scotch Porter.
What's up, everybody? Today, we're here to talk about drugs. And I'm here with two amazing individuals that are gonna help us unpack their journey in the world of psychedelics and what it means to microdose. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
So my name is Paul Austin. I'm the founder of an online platform called Third Wave and a psychedelic pioneer. I specifically talk about the intentional and responsible use of microdosing psychedelics.
My name's Elijah. I'm an artist, photographer, creative entrepreneur. I look forward to maybe learning a few things.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely gonna learn, but let's start with what got you to this place? If you can share a little bit about your journey to exploring and experimenting with psychedelics, and then how you use that, how you decided to, create a living out of it.
So I grew up in Michigan, the Midwest, traditional family, religion, church every Sunday. So a lot of what was good and bad was determined by those religious scriptures. And one thing that was considered bad would be illegal drug use. And so at the age of 16, I tried cannabis for the first time and thought it was interesting. And then at the age of 19, had my first really profound experience with LSD in particular. And from that experience, just chose a very unconventional path. So after graduating from college, I moved to Turkey and taught English there for a year, taught myself how to build an online platform. And then in 2015, noticed the emergence of psychedelics again. There were some pretty well-known podcasters who were talking about it, more clinical research coming out. And I thought, hey, if we start a platform now and we really educate around responsible use, then we can shift the narrative so that this isn't about dropping out like it was in the 60s. Right. But this is really about how can we bring this enhanced awareness to create, more valuable lives.
What is microdosing? How do you do it? What is it? And what are the potential benefits and what are the potential risks?
There could be any range of 0.25 milligrams to it's a very specific amount that they talk about for microdosing.
About a tenth.
Yeah, a tenth of a normal dose, yeah. So, depending on what you're doing, with the psilocybin, you can put it into capsules, almost like a vitamin. Right. And then you're just supplying yourself with a low level every day to just have long-term effects. It's like a regimen type of thing.
But is it a replacement for things like meditation, as an example? Or is it an enhancement or an addition to it?
So microdosing, think of it as like a protocol, right? So when you start meditating, you don't just meditate day one and go, oh, I feel amazing. You commit to I'm gonna do this for 30 days. By the end of the 30 days, I'll see how I feel. It's the same with microdosing, right? So like Elijah was saying, 2 or 3 or 4 times a week with about a tenth of a regular dose. And the idea with it is that you don't become psychologically dependent on it necessarily. In other words, you're not looking to give your power up to it. Oh, I'm feeling this way because I took this substance. Instead, you're asking, how can I use that as an opening? To help with meditating more often, to be more mindful about what I'm eating. Because what happens when you're microdosing is you're activating serotonin, and that's tied to neuroplasticity. And so when you have a more malleable sense of self, then it becomes easier to essentially change your behaviors and change your habits. And I think that's what's really empowering about it, is that you're using it as a tool to then dramatically shift sort of the trajectory of where you're going. So that's why intention still matters and these other things still matter. Now, in terms of the risks, the biggest risk is that it's still illegal most places, right? So I think that from a legal perspective, to be mindful of that is important. Another risk is that if you're working with something like LSD, always test the substance to make sure that you're getting what is actually LSD. And then I think the third risk, which I alluded to already, is the sense of dependency. So in other words, a lot of people are microdosing to replace SSRIs. And it's better to think of that as a mindset shift where you're not necessarily like, oh, do I have to take this the rest of my life? But instead you're taking it, you're working with it, with a therapist or with a coach, you're weaving in these new behavioral patterns. And that way you're not worried about becoming dependent on this external substance.
Well, when you say dependent, right, when we're talking about drugs, most people associate dependence with addiction. Right? Can you get addicted to these things?
It's more of an emotional, like you were saying, you can become dependent on what it does for you. Everything's moderation. These are emotionally dependent things. So I think there's as long as there's awareness and being able to prioritize, what are the results I'm getting from this? What's the means for this? What's my purpose with this process? I also think it's really important that the Black community is open to these things. Like, you know, when I grew up, it was kind of a thing that it was considered like white people stuff. I actually acted as a bridge, getting a lot of people comfortable with it. So I think it's important to like just be open-minded and just ready to learn.
Brothers, thank you so much for engaging in this conversation. I know I learned a lot. Hopefully our audience did as well. And this is The Wellness Edit.